In the spirit of Halloween, paranormal or not, what's the scariest, creepiest, or most unsettling experience you've ever had?
When I was 15, I had just gotten home from work and went to my bedroom to change out of my work clothes and get ready for bed. In the middle of changing, I looked at my bedroom window to catch my reflection and saw a man's face. I dropped to the floor and turned off the lights, scrambling to get dressed while still watching the window. The face was gone. But then I saw a camera. No face, just a camera pointed at me as I sat on the floor. I bolted from my room and told my mom and brother. My brother went outside and found our ladder from the backyard lying there. But nobody was around. I couldn't sleep for a year after that. I just stared at that window. Haven't thought about it in years. Thanks, Reddit.
Why my window shades stay closed at all times.
Growing up, my bedroom was the only one that faced the front of the house and the street. When I was about 8 or 9, I woke up to my dad calmly but firmly telling me to get up, go into the bathroom, and shut the door. I was annoyed because I was half asleep, but I listened. Apparently, I was more tired than I realized because I fell asleep on the bathroom floor. The next morning, I asked my mom what had happened. She seemed oblivious and confused. I looked at my dad like she was crazy and asked him why he had woken me up. He denied doing it. I was frustrated to the point of tears, but I ultimately let it go. Fast forward to college. I was home on break and decided to ask again. I had thought of that night off and on for years and it still bothered me. This time, my dad goes, "Ha, I was wondering if you even remembered that." It turns out that back then a lot of houses on our block were being vandalized and robbed. Someone had broken into the garage and was inside the house. My room was partially over the garage. My dad heard it happen and quietly got me to safety. The police were called, the guy ran, and he was never caught. My parents didn't want a terrified kid on their hands, so for years they pretended like nothing had ever happened.
Oh wow, for the first half of that story, I honestly thought it was the intruder who told you to go to the bathroom.
When I was a kid, I woke up in the middle of the night to my bed shaking. Normally that would have scared me, but instead I was just kind of annoyed. I rolled over and muttered, "Stop it." The shaking stopped immediately. Then a male voice spoke right beside me saying, "Sorry." That's when I freaked out. I'm pretty sure my childhood house was haunted.
Those Canadian ghosts are pretty terrifying.
Dear Diary, I tried to haunt someone today, but they just told me to stop. I was so surprised that I just apologized, but it was so embarrassing I wanted to sink into the floor. So I did. FML. Edit. Dear Diary, today random strangers on the internet read my diary only to correct my grammar. Super awkward. FMAL.
When I was 16 in the mid-90s, the I know everything, I'm invincible, and you can't stop me age, I got into a fight with an acquaintance while a bunch of us were hanging out at his house. Stupid fight. Can't even remember what it was about, but I decided, forget it, I was going home. I lived about 5 miles away, but I didn't have a car, and since it was 2 a.m., there were no buses. I was going to walk home, in the middle of the night, through a not as safe as it seemed neighborhood as a tiny 16-year-old girl. So I did. Looking back, I think my friends either didn't believe I was going to do it, or they were too startled by the sudden argument to realize what I was doing. I left the house and started walking. About a mile out, the suburban neighborhood turned into a main street with highway access. That's when I noticed a grayish minivan following me. It would follow me, pass me, turn a corner, and about 3 blocks later, do the same thing. Really obvious. I crossed to the other side of the street so I was walking against traffic, meaning no car could come up behind me. The minivan kept doing it, just on the other side. About a mile later, I came to a 24-hour Fred Meyer, a West Coast USA chain, grocery all-purpose store. Bright lights, but an almost empty parking lot. I immediately crossed into the lot and headed for the doors. Just before I got to them, the minivan pulled up into one of the parking spots. A man called out from the driver's side, "I don't want you to walk over here, just stay there and listen. I just wanted to let you know what I was doing. I saw you walking a while back, but I also saw a dark car that was following you. A couple of times you turned around or stopped, and it started following you down a parallel side street. When I saw it, I started to follow you both, just to make sure you were safe. Go inside the store and call someone to come pick you up, please. I haven't seen the car since you headed across the lot." He waited until I was inside the store, then pulled away. I didn't have anyone to call, so I told the night cashier what was going on and hung out with her for about an hour and a half. Then I finished the walk home. I've never forgotten that incident, or that man, whoever he was. I never saw the dark car he mentioned, but I've always believed he saved my life that night.
Not to me, but to my sister. Her husband and she had just had their first child a few months earlier. My brother-in-law was working the graveyard shift while my sister stayed home taking care of my nephew. Around 2 a.m., she heard loud knocking on her back door. She went to check it out and saw a woman banging on the door, asking my sister to let her in. The woman told my sister that her husband had just beaten her down the street and was looking for her. My sister was hesitant to let her in since she had a newborn in the house and didn't want to put them in danger. She told the woman the best she could do was call the police for her. The woman told my sister not to call the police and to just let her in. That's when my sister got suspicious. She went to get her phone and called 911. When she went back to the door, the woman was gone. The police arrived a few minutes later and told my sister that the same situation had happened a few streets away. Apparently, a couple would use this tactic to get into people's homes. I'm sure this is more common than people realize, but having it almost happen to my sister and my nephew just creeps me out. Some real Clockwork Orange stuff.
Yeah, that's a classic setup. When I was in my early 20s, I lived in Virginia with my wife while we were both in the Navy. We had an apartment in Virginia Beach. One night at about 1 a.m., someone started banging loudly on our door. The door was on the first floor of the apartment, and there were interior stairs that led up to the second floor where the rest of the apartment was laid out. Because of this setup, there was an intercom system from the top of the stairs to the front door. After hearing the banging and telling my wife to stay in bed with her phone ready to call 911, I grabbed a knife and went to the intercom. I asked what they wanted so late, and a man, though I could tell there were at least 2 of them, responded that they were taking donations for Hurricane Katrina victims. This was only shortly after the hurricane happened, but doing it at 1 a.m. didn't make sense. My first response was to tell them I wasn't an idiot, that I was armed, and that I would now be calling the police. The guy got mad and called me a few names before banging on my door a couple more times. I checked the perimeter, and that was it. My wife had already called 911, and they told us it was a scam they were running in the area for the same reason. There are a lot of terrible people out there.
I think I'm more baffled by that reason to knock. Not saying hurricane relief isn't important, but I don't think anyone would open the door at that time of night. It's crazy how people will try anything to break in.
On the way to a camping trip, I passed by an old, painted-up car covered in Muppet decorations and other stuff. Obviously owned by some crazy person who couldn't drive over 50 mph. Without stopping, we passed the same car 40 minutes later.
Ah yes, country folk, we're good at this. Let me explain. My sister lives in a small town, let's call it Point A, and must drive 2 hours through 2 mountain passes on a single-lane highway to my town, Point B. If she continues through my town on the same road, she must drive 45 minutes until the road dead ends to reach my mother's house, Point C. So it takes my sister 2 hours and 45 minutes to get to Mom's house on the only available road. Except we don't take the road. We take unmarked back roads and abandoned logging roads and can get from Point A to Point C in 45 minutes.
The Matrix must have been really glitchy that day.
This one time in high school, my pencil fell off my desk and disappeared. I kid you not. I am as sure as I can be that no one quickly grabbed it as a joke. I think I would have seen, and the people around me weren't really like that anyway. I checked in a 5-foot radius around my desk thinking it could have caught an odd bounce off the eraser. Nope. I watched it roll lazily off the side of my desk and immediately leaned over to retrieve it, and it was gone. I went from annoyed to perplexed to slightly troubled over the course of the next half hour, checking for it every few minutes but coming up empty. I have since come to the conclusion that the Matrix gobbled it up.
I've had multiple times when I've woken up in the middle of the night and was sure I could see a figure in my room until I turned on my bedside light. Usually this scares me a bit. But my most memorable one was waking up thinking I saw some short figure at the end of my bloody bed and saying, "Forget off. I'm trying to sleep." Then returning to burying my face into the comfort of my pillow. Seems like it worked.
On my previous job when our building was still under construction, the only floors that were occupied were the 1st, 2nd, 5th, 6th, and 7th. One time, I was alone inside the elevator going from the 1st to the 6th floor when suddenly it stopped and opened on the 3rd floor. Normally, I would just disregard it, but rumors were all over that a ghost child was playing around on the vacant floors, so I pressed the close button as fast as I could. When it closed, I heard noises like someone was tapping their fingers on the walls of the elevator.